Looking at the situation of food waste, I was described to have been encouraged by a friend to assist with brainstorming grant proposals provided by the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. I learned at the Community Assistance Network Board of Directors meeting that they are interested in developing a food bank in Baltimore for low-income families and are in need of additional funds to build a warehouse in order to expand the building and for better distribution systems. The Board of Directors considered these two needs and must choose one to potentially fund, a decision that I am contemplating on myself. An advantage of building a medium-sized food warehouse is that it helps to resolve the issue of scarcity for those collecting food items. With the larger storage capacity, it is less likely that there will not be enough food supply to meet the demand of those who are receiving food. A disadvantage of building a medium-sized food warehouse is that it may promote an increase of food waste if the demand for food is too low to meet the incoming supply of food products. According to the Environmental Science and Sustainability textbook, food loss or waste can occur at several stages along the food supply chain from the farm to the consumer. But in the United States, more than 60% of the food waste occurs because consumers buy food they do not end up eating. An advantage of focusing on better distribution systems is that it would make food more easily accessible to a wider local demographic. A disadvantage of focusing on better distribution systems is contrary to the advantage of a warehouse in that it would not decrease the likelihood of people and families going hungry due to the food bank being short in supply. I and the board of directors decided to build a medium-sized food warehouse to store more food. Thankfully, the warehouse can be staffed by volunteers, but the board of directors must choose whether to ask volunteers to collect food from supermarkets and have community members pick it up, or encourage households to drop off donations and have volunteers deliver food to community members. I put myself into the perspective of this second scenario as well. An advantage of collecting food from supermarkets is that the people and families from low-income households will be more likely to have a stable intake of food items since supermarkets are constantly replenishing items to create business. Also, not only are the low-income communities benefited by receiving food, but supermarkets are also benefited by potentially seeing profit increase for charging consumers more for higher quality food and having the ability to replenish shelves with products that will have a higher demand. According to Peter Ramjug from Northeastern Global News, a store that actively donates food is less likely to have low-quality items on the shelf. Keeping more fresh items on display means that the food that they do sell fetches a higher average price and results in a higher margin. A disadvantage of collecting food from supermarkets is that the food being donated would be less accessible to those receiving food since it would not be delivered to them directly. In addition, according to Robert Bryce at RFGen, charity organizations feel timing is the biggest problem when partnering with food businesses. When the organization depends on packaging errors, cosmetic problems, and other deficiencies for donations, there's no way to anticipate when the next large inventory shipment will come in and from where. Lastly, with driving up the costs of higher quality food products, this would make it more difficult for low-income households to overcome food insecurity. An advantage of encouraging households to drop off donations is that it prevents food waste on a large scale, but prevents landfills from growing in size. A disadvantage of encouraging households to drop off donations is that the increased use of private transportation in order to donate the food items and deliver them to low-income community members might be considered an issue of sustainability due to the increased production of carbon emissions. Furthermore, food items donated from households have a higher consumption risk since they are being delivered from anonymous sources, and checking to ensure that donated food is edible would require a lot of time and energy. After evaluating these advantages and disadvantages, I chose to encourage households to drop off donations. The outcome of these two decisions is that I learned that the Center for a Livable Future will only award the grant if the Community Assistance Network provides evidence that the community's households are willing to contribute to a food drop-off program, that volunteers are able to distinguish safely consumable to inconsumable foods, and ample volunteers with access to personal transportation.